This is Howie Sandberg for Northeast Hardcore Wrestling. Welcome back to the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, all roads lead to the granddaddy of them all, Fantasy Bash. And it's hard to believe that the biggest event of the year is just 2 weeks away. It was the go-home show for this mega event. Total Anarchy taking place live from the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And what a show it was. Kicking off with a hot promo from one Lightning Mountain. Now, we had asked for answers. We had needed answers. We deserved answers. And whether we like it or not, well, we did get answers. And I have to say, most of us probably did not like those answers. Lightning Mountain would state, simply, he has nothing left to give. That he had given blood, sweat, and tears to this business. And where's it gotten him? That he, after Legion Cage smacked him over the head with his shovel, things became crystal clear to him on what he must do. And he set his sights on Chaos Night. It wasn't just a matter of feeling like other wrestlers in the back. Chaos Night maybe specifically did not have his back. We thought maybe that was the impetus for this new attitude. No. It now appears this was premeditated. Lightning Mountain knew exactly what he was going to do. So with nothing left to give, Lightning Mountain would say, it's now time to take. And take he did from Chaos Night. He took him for a fool, pulled the rug out from under him, put the knife in his back. Chaos Knight thought they were brothers in arms with the reformation, of Lords of the Ring, LOR. When Lightning Mountain smashed a garbage can over Chaos Knight's head, it was also crystal clear they were not brothers, but rather enemies. Now, Chaos Knight, we must say, is red hot. He is now 4-time FWA World Heavyweight Champion after making history in winning that title, that prestigious title, very recently. So it'll be interesting to see when these two men collide at Fantasy Bash, one of the premier matches of Night 2. One also has to wonder in regards to Lightning Mountain, what is this doing to his legacy? There's no doubt the man is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. A legend of the IWF, a legend of STW, a cornerstone of STW. But what has this done to his legacy? He was a career babyface. This will be a matchup you do not want to miss. In the first wrestling match of the night, it was Brock the Pulverizer taking on the ratings god, Lance Rave. You will recall Deviant Behavior. Lance Rave made a surprise appearance and cost Brock his match against God's Herald Legion Cage. Since then, Lance Rave would sign a contract with Northeast Hardcore Wrestling, as well as join the cartel. This was Brock's chance to extract some revenge against Rave. We must say Lance Rave wrestled an outstanding match. To have any chance, he would need to hit, run, ground the big man, stay out of his clutches. In the early going, it was all Brock, confining things to close quarters, using his size to his advantage. But as the match would progress, Lance Rave would take control. However, in the end, the big man was just too much for the ratings god, hitting a brogue kick and a jackknife powerbomb to score the 1-2-3. Sitting at ringside for guest commentary during this match was God's Herald Legion Cage, Brock's opponent for Fantasy Bash on night 1. Legion Cage, after the match, would attempt a sneak attack, which did not work. Brock would hit him with the big boot and was getting ready to set him up for the jackknife powerbomb when Lance Rave would pull Cage out of the ring. Of course, the fans would boo. Will Brock even the score against Legion Cage at Fantasy Bash? We will see. The next match of the evening was arguably the match of the night. The Underdogs taking on the Dirty Dicks. And again, I will reiterate, I will never get tired of saying that. Big Dick Bastard and Junkyard Dick Train. Fans have actually, surprisingly, maybe, taken more of a liking to the Dirty Dicks as of late. But in this match against the legendary babyface team of the Underdogs, they were not going to be cheered. The Dirty Dicks, that is. The Underdogs did what they do. They did underdog things. Wrestling an outstanding match. Quite the blend of styles here between both teams, with the Dirty Dicks being your big biker dudes, powerful individuals. And at points, they were able to use that strength to their advantage. The Underdogs would take over a good portion of this match, but in the end, it was the Underdogs going for their trademark finisher, the Blue Chip Special, which is a super kick from the front with one of the other Underdogs hitting a super kick from the back, resulting in serious compression. They went for that double super kick, and Big Dick Bastard moved out of the way. The Underdogs were able to stop themselves from kicking each other in their respective faces. However, Big Dick Bastard would clothesline Steve Seneca and then blast Ricky Magnum with that violent slap of his, that open hand slap over the chest. Now, I know it's not exactly the same as a heart punch, but if you've seen Big Dick Bastard throw this move, ow! That is one painful move. You might think on the surface, wow, it's just a slap. Man, oh man, that's way more than just a slap. That has got to hurt immensely. And the Dirty Dicks would pick up perhaps an upset win, maybe. Either way, the biggest win of their careers in Northeast Hardcore Wrestling. And you just have to wonder now what this will mean for the Dirty Dicks. This could quite possibly launch them towards the NEHW the NEHW World Tag Team Championships. The trio of the Dirty Dicks. And I can't help but laugh when I think about Big Dick Bastard, when I think about Junkyard Dick Train, when I think about Gnarly Dick. I can't help but think of Newhart, if you guys remember that show. I'm Dwayne. This is my brother Dwayne. This is my other brother Dwayne. Dick dick and more dick. You know, I didn't know what was coming in here, you know, to see dicks. So, we move on. The next match of the night was a rematch from Deviant Behavior in that wild backyard death match that, quite frankly, set wrestling back about 300 years. Jim Cornette and James Crabtree would rant and rave about how awful this match was. It was a beautiful train wreck, a polarizing match for sure. Some actually somehow enjoyed it. Those wrestling purists surely did not. Now, this match tonight was a wrestling match. Go figure, a wrestling match on a wrestling show. And Iggy Crum, boy oh boy, was he out of his element. Embarrassing, quite frankly, at points during this match. Iggy Crum would run the ropes and just stop there, evidently not knowing how to run the ropes. This man did not go to wrestling school. He received no formal training. Awesome Force would lock him in an abdominal stretch, and it looked like the spot called for Iggy to break out of it via an arm drag. That is the arm drag that was used earlier in the match several times on several occasions by Awesome Force. Awesome Force realized this was not happening, and he turned it into a side Russian leg sweep. There was a point in this match in which it appeared Iggy was laying in shoot-style punches to Awesome Force, and Awesome Force, although ever the professional, and he did improvise at points in this contest, he was not going to have this, so he rolled over and laid in stiff-style punches of his own, giving a receipt to the Mud Show Outlaw. The Mud Show Outlaw would run the ropes awkwardly, in a sloppy fashion, with Awesome Force on the ground, and he would just stop right in front of Awesome Force, and Awesome Force was laying there, screaming, "Throw the leg drop, you idiot." And Iggy just froze. He got pissed off, and he cracked Awesome Force in the jaw, and then hit a jaw breaker, an awkward-looking jaw breaker. Awesome Force would regain control, go up to the top rope, look to hit the awesome elbow drop, and Iggy rode out of the way. It looked like this was not the plan, perhaps. Or maybe this was just an orchestrated abortion of a match. But I don't think so. Anyhow, Iggy would attempt to apply a figure four, had no idea how to wrap the legs properly, and mercifully, this was put to an end when Awesome Force would utilize the Bulldog chokeout to gain the victory. After the match, Iggy Crum was revived by some smelling salts brought into the ring by the referee. Awesome Force was celebrating, and then Awesome Force on the middle turnbuckle, posing for the fans. Iggy Crum would sneak behind him and drop him with a vicious power bomb and go to work on him. And then, once again, to the rescue. It's not a bird. It's not a plane. It's your superhero, Captain Breakfast, rushing the ring once again after Iggy had brought a 2x4 wrapped in barbed wire into the squared circle and was getting ready to crack Awesome Force upside the skull. Captain Breakfast would thwart this attack and hit a Pele kick on Iggy Crum, who would drop the 2x4, and then Captain Breakfast would use it, smashing it with a beautiful baseball swing, smashing it over Iggy Crum's head. Once again, Captain Breakfast to the rescue of Awesome Force, and now it looks like Iggy Crum and Captain Breakfast will be feuding with one another. In the next match of the night, this one was also arguably the match of the night. Lucian Champion, one of, if not the greatest wrestler of all time, returning to action against the Samoan murder machine, Manu. This was just Champion's second match in many, many years. He did make an appearance at Super Clash to take on Big Dread Vedder in 2020. Would there be ring rust? And talk about, not exactly being eased back into action against a man as accomplished and savage, strong is Manu. Manu has run roughshod through the entire Northeast Hardcore Wrestling roster. The story here is that while Manu did take the early going of this match and was a little slow for Lucian to get out of the gates, he absolutely returned to fine form in this matchup. Ever the ring general, focusing on a injured body part after Manu had run accidentally through the middle rope turnbuckle. He crashed his shoulder into the steel ring pole. Lucian would hit a shoulder breaker and a cross arm breaker, and throughout the match would unload with a series of beautiful suplexes, including a Northern Lights suplex towards the tail end of the match that almost scored the pin. A superplex. He just looked tremendous, quite frankly. He looked like classic Lucian Champion. During the match, Johnny Legend, his opponent for Fantasy Bash, in the main event of Fantasy Bash on night 2, he would come out to the ring to scout Lucian. And what he would eventually see is Lucian defeat the native beast Manu with Lucian's trademark super kick. Legend would get into the ring, and he and Lucian would start firing off fists, rapid fire fists, and the crowd loved this. Only it was short-lived, as a whole slew of NEHW referees and stagehands would get in the squared circle and break this up. A pull-apart brawl. The fans were not happy about this, but the office apparently did not want this to go down on this night, leaving the fans wanting more, wanting to see this happen at Fantasy Bash, and it will be the 3-time Northeast Hardcore Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion, Johnny Legend, the 5-tool player, the youngest World Heavyweight Champion in the history of this business, the man that has no weaknesses, the man that can do it all, going up against, fitting I say against, Lucian Champion being a Canadian hero, going up against, as I said earlier, arguably the greatest wrestler of all time, the legend himself, the man who the man who was the top star in Canadian Pride Wrestling, Lucian Champion. Now, it will be interesting. Lucian has always come up with the goods in the big spots. Mr. Clutch, winning all of the big matches. Johnny Legend, lately he has been doing the same. Something has to give in this matchup. Will Lucian Champion become the new champion, or will Legend retain on the grandest and biggest stage of them all? Next up, we had an in-ring segment, a promo with Double H. A coffin was set up in the ring, along with an object that was covered. It appeared to be some sort of large object, so it was quite the, in turn, large covering of said object. Double H would feign being devastated by the recent tragic passing of Meatloaf, that he was out there to pay tribute to Meatloaf. The fans would heckle Double H with chants of Meatloaf, Meatloaf. Of course, it being known that Double H earlier in his career was poked fun at for allegedly resembling Meatloaf, and this would come to surface again some almost 20 years later via a sex tape that resurfaced, displaying how he looked earlier in his career, and Chaos Knight would poke fun at him during that feud for resembling Meatloaf. So Meatloaf actually in the news, both in Northeast and sadly with the tragic news of his passing. This segment was interesting, for lack of a better word. Double H would state that he was out there to eulogize Meatloaf. I suppose we were supposed to believe that Meatloaf was in that coffin. Double H would go on to say that he has a hidden talent that nobody knows about, and that he is quite the singer, having performed a sterling rendition of the Creed song "One" at an Ozfest, claiming that the band Creed was looking to oust the dirtbag that is Scott Stapp. Hard to believe that anyone is a bigger dirtbag than Double H, but I digress. And that they wanted Double H to replace Scott Stapp in the band. Well, Double H would clear his throat and go on to perform Meatloaf songs, saying he could best pay tribute to him in that way, rather than going on a long verbal diatribe of his own. And man, oh man. First of all, Double H cannot sing. This was very difficult on the ears. The fans most likely had their ears bleeding from the first song, which I believe was Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And Double H would then go on to a second song, and it did not get any better. Third song eventually would come on, and the fans would pop, as it was just not any song. It was the theme song for Billy Johnson. I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. But also by Meatloaf, Billy Johnson would come to the ring, and the two men would get into a verbal jousting. Eventually, what would happen is these two men would duke it out after Double H said he would kick Billy Johnson's ass if he didn't get out of the ring like a bat out of hell. Clever, Double H, clever. And Double H would say that if Billy would not leave his ring, he would wind up like his friend Meatloaf. He would become dead meat. Fists would fly. Double H would take a pair of scissors out of his pocket and puncture Billy's neck with those scissors. Then hitting a heartthrob neck drop, Double H would take the scissors and stab Billy Johnson in the neck. Ooh, just ugly stuff here, folks. The EMTs would rush out to the ring after Double H departed to tend to Billy. And Billy would be stretchered out on a gurney, placed in a neck brace, We will see if Billy is ready for Fantasy Bash when it will be More to Love Billy Johnson going up against Double H. And what a feud this has been thus far. What a feud. And I urge you folks to also check out the Billy Johnson Out of Ring Action promo, as it was just fantastic. Just fantastic stuff. Moving on. The Manhandlers would reunite on this night in tag team action. The Intercontinental Champion Princess Peter and Bubba the Prison Guard going up against Khalil the Lion and his friend the Scorpion. It certainly appeared, well, I wouldn't say appeared. Khalil the Lion would go for a missile drop kick, and after performing this move or attempting it, he would reach for his hamstring area, and it appeared the boys improvised to go home early in this thing, and Bubba would spear Khalil to pick up the 1, 2, 3, and the victory for the Manhandlers. Princess Peter has been on quite the roll ever since winning the Intercontinental Championship back at Bedlam in Brooklyn. He has had successful title defenses against Captain Breakfast, against Khalil, another win here tonight. Who will be next for Princess Peter? It certainly appears like one of the Dirty Dicks is looking to make Peter his valet. Can you believe that? Peter as a valet. I mean, he's quite feminine, he's quite flamboyant, but I don't know about being a valet. There was a recent Love Connection episode with Peter and a member of the Dirty Dicks, Big Dick Bastard. So, interesting occurrences there between the Dirty Dicks and Princess Peter. It might be a feud that is on the horizon. Khalil will be out of action for quite some time. Then before we get to the main event, it was Amy Salters interviewing the Devil's Own. The Devil's Own would basically cut a promo saying that they have the Money in the Bank contract for a World Tag Team Championship opportunity, and they will cash in whenever they see fit and basically put the tag teams on notice to watch their backs. In the main event of the evening, Chaos Knight going up against F the Office Freddie Fuller. This was a hard-hitting affair. And Chaos Knight would score the victory after hitting his Death Valley Driver, one of the biggest victories of his entire career, going over on Freddie Fuller. And that is saying a lot because Chaos Knight has had a long, illustrious career for sure. The Maestro and Freddie Fuller would attack Chaos Knight after the match. And who would make the save? Ravishing Rude Runo, Freddie Fuller's opponent in one of the high-profile matches of Fantasy Bash Match 1. Meanwhile, Chaos Knight would brawl with Lightning Mountain as Lightning Mountain would come out to the ring, and those two men would brawl all over ringside. Eventually, Fuller and the Maestro turned the tide on Runo, and the end of the show saw Runo laid out with Fuller and Maestro standing over him. It was an excellent show. And as we said earlier, all roads lead to Fantasy Bash. Thank you, folks, for listening to the latest version of the podcast. We will be back with a preview of Fantasy Bash. And as always, we will see you on the proverbial flip side.